This programme was made with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Over the last year, our Heritage Channel team have been exploring the rich history of our coastal community, following regeneration projects like the Peterson Smokehouse, visiting magnificent local buildings like Wheelsby Hall, and reporting on heritage at risk like the fascinating and fragile Humberston Fitters. We were therefore delighted to hear that thanks to the local council creative team, North East Lincolnshire has been named as one of the first 9 heritage places by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, securing priority investment for the next 10 years and a share in a £200 million pot of funding for our heritage needs, opportunities and potential. It builds on the recently completed Greater Grimsby Heritage Action Zone project, which aimed to enrich history, heritage and culture through a series of partnership programmes. But how should this money be spent? Maybe to reinstate the Corporation Bridge, allowing seagoing craft to once again sail into the heart of the town, or save the once proud derelict buildings that have stood neglected for decades, or celebrate our cultural heritage with events like the Grim Fest. Let us know your thoughts and ideas by email or post on our social media pages. But heritage isn't just about buildings. Our rich cultural heritage, like the legend of Grim and Havelok, has inspired writers from around the world to write about their own origins in poetry, short stories or non-fiction in a competition run by Hammond House Publishing and the Equality Practice. The judging panel included myself, poet Paul Sutherland and journalist Elise Ballard. Here are the results.
We had some wonderful entries from all around the world. The judging was exciting, challenging and rewarding. In the poetry category, 3rd place went to The Lough by Michael Coleman from Belfast in Northern Ireland. 2nd place went to A Monster Born in My Brain by Tagayan Janhersum from Zamboanga City in the Philippines. And the category winner is Ma Mère Maman by Paris Rosemont from Sydney, Australia. In the short story category, 3rd place went to A Sense of Duty by Chris Cottam from Macclesfield in Cheshire. 2nd place went to Calling Sabrina by Jean Cooper Moran from Newham in Gloucestershire. And the category winner is Saints and Sinners by David Edfordson from Cleethorpes in Lincolnshire. And in the non-fiction category, 3rd place went to La Bella Luna by Kate Durant from Cork in Ireland. 2nd place went to Maclar the Village Santiwa by Noel Otensia from Treguana in Trinidad and Tobago. And the category winner is North East Lass by Cathy Hoyle from Coventry in the West Midlands. So the overall winner, with a prize of £100 and inclusion in the 2024 Hammond House Anthology, is North East Lass by Cathy Hoyle.
The fascinating origin legend of Grim and Havelok and the part they played in the foundation of Grimsby has been celebrated over the years with statues, seals, songs and stories. It has now inspired a fictional story told in a beautifully illustrated children's book by writer Tracy Todd and illustrator Sarah Palmer. The book will feature in a series of workshops for local schoolchildren.
The legend of Grim and Havelok is really a vehicle for talking about where we come from, what our origins were. And people who live in Grimsby, they may have the DNA of Grim or Havelok in them. And those that have come to live here over the years are treading in the footsteps of this famous migrant that named our town. And the story itself, the book itself, is all about getting young people involved, because many young people have never seen the statue, don't know the story, don't know the local history. The story itself has an oral tradition going back before the 12th century, and at one time was even bigger than Robin Hood. And there's, romance, there's Vikings. I looked at that story and I thought, great story, would be great for the TV. But also I looked at it from the point of view of how would it attract children? We thought that children would love an illustrated version.
When I was trying to think of the aesthetic, I just watched a documentary about the Bayeux Tapestry. It occurred to me that the Normans were the Northmen, and they were descendants of the Vikings who'd also come over here, and that there probably wasn't that much distance, if you know what I mean, visually between the Vikings and the Bayeux Tapestry. That gave me the ideas for the colours of just using like an ochre, a burgundy, a blue and a kind of holly green. And then also it gave me the ideas for panels of using like a little strip at the top and bottom as kind of pull-outs to kind of add to the action.
So we're going into around 10 schools, we're working with scouts. It's not only to encourage reading and to understand more about the legend of Grim and how our town possibly got its name, but it's also to get them involved with local heritage. I think it's important for young people to explore heritage, even as a legend, because it gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, a sense of where they came from, of the possibilities in their life. And there is a lot in Grimsby, there's a lot of people that look at Grimsby and look at the word grim and think that grim means, dour or uninteresting in some way. But to know that legend and to know that this story was once bigger than Robin Hood and to have that sense of pride, I think is really important.
Grim will be available soon through all good online and high street booksellers, but can be bought now in time for Christmas from the bookshop at hammondhouse.org.uk or in the Hammond House Gallery in Louth. You can join the Create North East Lincolnshire team in a visit to Barnsley on Thursday the 30th of November to see Grimsby artist Annabel McCourt's exhibition I'm Sorry at Barnsley Civic, followed by a tour of Barnsley's broad and diverse public art. The sci-fi murder mystery period drama Bodies, featuring filming from Grimsby Historic Docks, is available now on Netflix. The autumn term of the Lincolnshire Young Archaeologists Club will focus on ancient Egypt, Bronze Age Europe and Victorian England. Lorna Almonds-Wimble will be giving a talk at International Bomber Command Centre in Lincoln about her father, Gentleman Jim Almonds, and the forming of the SAS. If you have any connections with the old Peterson Smokehouse, you can take part in a memory sharing session as part of the oral history project that accompanies the building's restoration. The winning picture for the 2024 Heritage Lincolnshire calendar is Golden Hour at St Andrews by Emily Robinson. You can pre-order a calendar now at the Heritage Lincolnshire shop. And finally, a celebration of local taiko featuring the Viking Taiko team and Gyoko U Taiko is at Grimsby Central Hall on the 18th of November.
Originally I wasn't actually going to breastfeed. Hattie arrived and she just latched on and I fell in love with it and the rest is history.
I went through a phase where I felt really, really broken. It felt like my body had let me down. So I wanted to breastfeed to kind of prove I wasn't broken.
I know breast milk is supposed to be really good for baby, and it's just something I wanted to do as as part of the journey of being a mother.
Because I was disabled, I knew there was going to be a lot of things in my life where I'd need help with my baby, and it was one thing that I knew that if I do it, it's all about me and my baby, and that was it.
In this month's Heritage feature, Gemma, Alex and Elise explore a prehistoric burial mound that dates back to the Bronze Age and ring the bells of the oldest building in Grimsby.
Did you know that this church in Old Clee is the oldest building in Grimsby, with a Saxon tower that dates back to 1050 AD? Now that's pretty old. But there's also another landmark that's even older nearby. Join me on a journey to find out more about the ancient history of the area. It might look like a simple hill, but behind me in Cleethorpes Cemetery is evidence that Cleethorpes is truly ancient. Beacon Hill, so called because of the beacon that was placed here in the medieval times, is a prehistoric burial mound that dates back to the Bronze Age. That's around 4,000 years ago. Excavations in the 1930s found Neolithic tools in the surrounding areas, suggesting people occupied this area some 6,000 years ago. In the barrow itself, large urns were found holding cremated remains, as well as smaller urns containing remains of 4 children. Who these people were is unknown, but it's hard not to speculate. Perhaps they were great warriors of a clan that lived in this area. But what is certain is that loved ones have been continuously buried in this land for thousands of years. Not much is known about the early years of Cleethorpes, but it seems that the area was permanently occupied from the 6th century. But these communities were small and fleeting, that is, until the Danes arrived. It's hard to believe what it was like all those years ago when the Vikings first arrived. Where I'm standing right now used to be rugged coastline as far as the eye could see. The tiny hamlets of Itterby, Ull and Thrunskow grew as fishing villages, famous for their oysters, which were sold up and down the coast, outside pubs and in manned stalls. As well as these 3 villages, there was also Clee, Southholme and Wheelsby. Of the 6 villages, only Old Clee and Wheelsby remain. Southholme became part of Grimsby, while Ull, Itterby and Thrunskow joined to become Cleethorpes. You still with me? We all know the history of Cleethorpes and its famous landmarks. From the pier to the Empire Theatre to Ross Castle, the seaside town was and still is a popular seaside resort. But what about one of the last remaining villages of the original 6? Most people think that Old Clee is part of Cleethorpes, but actually it's not. It's a separate village. And here I am at Old Clee Parish Church to find out more about its history.
The church, Old Clee, is actually called Holy Trinity and St Mary the Virgin. So not many people know that one.
The land that the church is built on used to be ancient farmland, and it was surrounded by water. And the oldest part of the building is behind me.
It's mentioned in the Domesday Book because we are actually the oldest building in Grimsby. That's the tower, the Saxon Tower.
This is the oldest building in Grimsby with its 11th century tower. The church was intended to provide not only a place of worship, but also a vantage point from which to watch for Viking invaders and a sanctuary to protect the villagers. You can see the so-called Old Man of Clee built into the stone, just up there. Nobody knows who the Old Man of Clee was, but he's always watching over the area.
When the tower was built in 1050, we then had, the church was added on. So 1100s, the church was then built in Norman times. So even the font is Norman and Saxon. So the font's Saxon, and then we have a Norman lid. As we come into the church, we've got a 16th century door. the main part, you've got a fish just up there that I can see. So we have a fish on the wall with a cross and a very large dragon's head. And it looks like we have a body of the dragon that's followed, which was kindly mentioned by Alex actually today. So I find that's quite helpful. Bishop Hugh, he dedicated the church in 1192. He's a very prominent figure in the church, so if you see, we've got a few statues around. He's also on our stained glass windows. This was quite an affluent church, so if you had money, then this was the church to be. So linked in with this church is a well-known family called the Grimsby family. Here we have a crypt, and that is just underneath the vicar's vestry. In the crypt, it is just solely for the Grimsby family, and being down there myself is quite interesting, and there is 3 members of the family down there.
When I walk through the door, I feel an instant connection with it. I think there's hundreds and hundreds of years of prayer in these walls, and you feel it. And it's layer upon layer of worship and prayer and joy, I think. We have services every Sunday at 11 and we run a food bank. Unfortunately, the numbers who go to the food bank have grown and grown. Many of those people work. So we have a lot of people in this community who work and earn a wage but cannot cope. So the food bank supports those. I didn't realise, but my mum and dad were married here in 1953, so that's an instant connection. But I just think it's such a beautiful church with such a wonderful history, full of great people doing great stuff.
Old Cleethorpes Church is the oldest building in Grimsby with a fascinating history, and it plays an important part in the local community. So this is the heaviest bell of the 3, and I thought the first one was heavy. Here we go. Oh, you've got to get it going. You've got to get a bit of momentum going. Yeah. And then you just hold it. Oh, that's it, we're off. We did it. I'm off. This, I don't know if it's because I've got the hang of it. It feels easier. but I don't know if my feet are supposed to go off the floor or not. Oh no! God, that is really hard. But one more. Come on. That's it. I'm cancelling my gym membership now. I'm just coming here for my workout weekly. Thank you, Helen. That was hard. That was, yeah.
Well, that's all from the Heritage Channel for now. To make sure you don't miss any of our programmes, subscribe to our channel or join our Facebook group. For a roundup of arts and entertainment across the region, plus a review of the latest film and book releases, tune in to our sister channel, Billboard TV. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next month for more heritage news, views and local stories. The programmes on the Heritage Channel are made with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund.